The history of Cangaço in northeastern Brazil. In the arid heart of Brazil's northeastern backlands, between thorny scrubland and scorching sun, one of the most striking phenomena in Brazilian history was born. A saga of violence, survival, and resistance that profoundly marked the identity of northeastern Brazil. This is the story of Cangaço, the story of men and women who took up arms and defied colonels, police, and even the federal government itself. A story that blends banditry with heroism, cruelty with codes of honor, social misery with the struggle for survival. Today, we're diving deep into this saga that lasted nearly a century and transformed outlaws into immortal legends. To understand Cangaço, we must first understand the northeastern sertão of the 19th and early 20th centuries. Imagine a region ravaged by devastating periodic droughts, where water was worth more than gold, and human life was often worth even less. The northeast of this era was marked by a deeply unequal social structure. At the top of the pyramid were the coronéis, large landowners who controlled vast stretches of land, decided elections, and made laws according to their interests. Below them, a mass of poor rural workers, cowboys, subsistence farmers, sharecroppers who lived in absolute poverty. The state was virtually absent. There were no police, no justice system that worked for the common people, no social safety net. It was in this context of abandonment and injustice that Cangaço emerged. The word Cangaço comes from cangalho or canga, the wooden yoke placed on oxen. These outlaws carried so many weapons and supplies on their backs that they resembled beasts of burden. But Cangaço wasn't just simple banditry. It was a complex social phenomenon with multiple causes: blood feuds, where family honor demanded vengeance; social injustice, where the oppressed took up arms after losing faith in the law; and survival, for during the great droughts, many sertanejos had only two choices: die of hunger or become bandits. Historians identify three main types of Cangaço: revenge Cangaço, refuge Cangaço, and professional Cangaço, the last being those who made banditry a lifelong trade. Before Lampião, there was Jesuíno Brilhante, considered the first great cangaceiro. Active in the 1870s, he became a legend for his audacity and his peculiar sense of justice. Born Jesuíno Alves de Melo Calado, he entered the Cangaço to avenge his father's murder. He robbed the rich, but helped the poor, never harmed women or children, and shared part of his loot with those in need. He was killed in 1879, but became the archetype of the cangaceiro as a folk hero. Then came Antonio Silvino, the elegant bandit. Active from 1896 to 1914, he perfected the image of the gentleman outlaw. He robbed trains, kidnapped for ransom, but was known for his courtesy and honor. He dominated the Cangaço for nearly 2 decades until his capture in 1914. Released after 23 years in prison, he lived peacefully until his death in 1944. He paved the way for the greatest of them all, Lampião. His real name was Virgulino Ferreira da Silva, but history would know him as Lampião, the king of Cangaço. Born in 1898 in Pernambuco, he lived a modest life until a violent feud changed everything. After his father was murdered by police in 1921, Lampião and his brothers joined an outlaw band to seek revenge. He earned his nickname because when he fired at night, the flash of his rifle looked like a lamp. By 24, he was leading his own group, and soon would dominate the sertão. Lampião turned Cangaço into a true guerrilla army. He organized his men like soldiers, established supply networks, and used advanced combat tactics. At his peak, he controlled territories across 6 states. He also built alliances with powerful coronels and politicians, a master strategist who navigated the chaos with intelligence and brutality. The myths grew fast. Some said he had a pact with the devil, others that bullets couldn't touch him. The press was obsessed, portraying him as both a monster and a hero. Lampião was cruel, but also deeply religious, carrying saints' images and praying daily. He punished the rich, helped the poor, and created his own twisted version of justice. In 1926, he met Father Cicero, the most influential priest in the Northeast. The priest convinced Lampião to accept a title as captain of the patriotic battalions, temporarily turning the most feared bandit into an official soldier. Though brief, this alliance cemented Lampião's legend as both sinner and saint of the sertão. Then came Maria Bonita, the first woman to join the Cangaço. Born Maria Gomes de Oliveira in 1911, she left her husband to follow Lampião. Her arrival changed everything. Soon, other women joined, transforming the outlaw camps into small, moving communities. They fought, cooked, sewed, cared for the wounded, and endured the same hardships as the men. Maria became a symbol of courage and passion, and her romance with Lampião would become one of Brazil's most enduring legends. But their love story ended in blood. By the 1930s, the Vargas government intensified its war on the Cangaçeiros. Elite police units called flying groups hunted them relentlessly through the Caatinga. In July 1938, Lampião's band was ambushed at Gruta de Angico. The attack was swift and brutal. Lampião was killed by a single shot. Maria Bonita tried to flee, but was also gunned down. Their heads were cut off and displayed as trophies, a shocking act meant to prove that even the king of Cangaço could die. Yet death only made the myth stronger. Corisco, known as the Blonde Devil, sought vengeance, but was also killed 2 years later. By 1940, the last Cangaçeiros had surrendered. An era ended, but the legend began. How does a criminal become a folk hero? Cordel literature, poems sold in fairs and markets, transformed Cangaçeiros into symbols of justice and defiance. Movies, songs, and books turned Lampião and Maria Bonita into Brazil's own Bonnie and Clyde. To this day, their faces and stories echo across the Northeast. Historians remain divided. Some see them as social rebels, products of a cruel, unjust system. Others see them as ruthless bandits who caused endless suffering. The truth lies somewhere in between. Cangaço was both rebellion and violence, courage and cruelty, resistance and survival. Its legacy lives on in art, music, cinema, and the collective imagination of Brazil. It reminds us that violence grows from injustice, that myths arise when the people are denied heroes, and that the sertanejo spirit, strong, proud, and unbreakable, still endures. The Cangaço ended, but the sertão continues. and with it, the eternal struggle of the northeastern people for dignity, justice, and survival. As the poet once said, the sertanejo is, above all, a strong one. After the 1938 massacre at Angico, police decapitated 11 cangacheros and preserved their heads in alcohol. For decades, these macabre trophies were displayed in medical museums as curiosities. By the 1960s, attitudes shifted. What once seemed like a justified display of defeated criminals now appeared barbaric. Families demanded the heads be buried. The Catholic Church called it desecration. Human rights advocates were appalled. Finally, in 1969, the heads were buried in a common grave in Salvador. But even this didn't end the controversy. Where exactly were they buried? Should they be exhumed and given to families? Should DNA testing confirm their identities? These debates reveal deeper questions about how we remember violent history. Do we honor all dead, even criminals? How do we balance victims' suffering with human dignity? There are no easy answers. Today, Cangaço is a tourist industry. Museums throughout the Northeast display weapons, clothing, and photographs. Tour guides lead visitors to historical sites. The Museum of Cangaço in Serra Talhada, Lampião's birthplace, attracts thousands each year. Gruta de Angico, the death site, is now a pilgrimage destination. Artisans sell replica hats, knives, and souvenirs. This commercialization troubles some historians. Are we glorifying violence, sanitizing brutal history for profit, creating a Disneyland version of tragedy? Others argue these museums serve an essential role. They teach context. They show the suffering of all sides. They turn pain into understanding. The best museums walk a careful line, preserving history without celebrating violence, acknowledging complexity without moral relativism, honoring memory without creating myths. In the Sertão itself, memory lives differently. Elderly residents remember stories their grandparents told, sometimes of terror, sometimes of kindness. Memory here is personal, contradictory, unreconciled. Some families still take pride in ancestors who helped Cangacheros despite the risks. Others remember victims and feel anger at romantic portrayals. Both truths exist side by side. And so, one question remains. Could anything have prevented Cangaço? If land had been shared more fairly, if drought had been addressed with real infrastructure, if justice had been accessible to all, if the state had protected its people instead of exploiting them, would Cangaço have ever existed? The answer seems clear. Cangaço was a symptom, not a disease. The disease was deep injustice, so profound that violence became rational for desperate people. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Those conditions never fully disappeared. The Northeast still struggles. Droughts, inequality, lack of opportunity. Progress is real, but incomplete. The story of Cangaço is not just Brazil's, it's universal. When justice fails, people make their own. When the state abandons its citizens, power fills the void. When inequality grows too wide, violence rushes in.